as you know, universities have always been a bastion of closed-mindedness and of students, young people, always on the tail end of social movements.
Never occupying buildings.
Never occupying buildings. Where did Joe Rogan go to college? Where did he? I don't know. He's an expert on what has happened. I'm just curious.
Wikipedia says Disney.
He went to Disney for
a development deal.
I mean, he's had some bad takes about schools and that aren't just colleges. Like he repeated that myth that there were kids wanting to identify as cats. His friend is a teacher.
His friend's wife is a teacher and told him about the kitty litter that was going on there where people are identifying as cats.
UMass Boston dropping out for one semester to do stand-up.
Okay. Yes. So, well, it's because it was so woke. Go ahead.
You got lucky because of this thing that's going on right now. Well, actually, I think this thing that's going on right now couldn't be going on right now without the influence of the internet.
Right.
The internet has like created this mind virus that's sweeping through college campuses.
Pause it. Hold on. Yeah. You know where else the internet is creating a mind virus? On the Joe Rogan experience. I mean,
white men listen to Rogan.
What's the biggest internet program on the internet? Yeah.
You mean the mind virus that spreads the coronavirus coming from the Joe Rogan program?
I mean, honestly, like there is no greater, bigger program that is delivered by the internet. That is
Spotify the internet?
Yeah. It's all Spotify and his YouTube stuff is huge. I mean, people could argue, but I mean, it's if there's a virus that's happening, I think we might know where patient X lies. Go ahead.
Well, actually, I think this thing that's going on right now couldn't be going on right now without the influence of the internet.
Right.
The internet has like created this mind virus that's sweeping through college campuses and also the universities and the Marxist philosophies that they've been pushing in universities because of they've all been infiltrated by Russia, by the former Soviet Union, and now by China and Russia together. For sure, they're influencing. They push the wokest teachers, the wokest professors, the nuttiest policies, and they're literally doing it to deteriorate the fabric of American democracy. They have like plans for it. They've thought about like Yuri Bezmenov talked about this in 1984.
I've seen that clip. It's crazy.
Crazy.
It's crazy.
When you watch it today, like they were right.
It's very prophetic.
He did it.
Yeah.
They did it. They really did it.
1,000%.
But the internet came along and threw gasoline on all those plans and made it much more chaotic. But in doing so, it also created this other thing, luckily, because I think this other thing that we're doing right now, podcasts, being completely unregulated and being on even platforms that are corporate platforms like YouTube, pretty fucking unregulated. No one's in flagrant. No one's sitting down with you guys, making sure you don't say anything wild.
Correct.
You upload it, and if you say something too wild, they'll flag it or they'll demonetize you.
But that's just that.
Could not have existed in any other time. And so
I find it interesting he only mentioned YouTube there and didn't mention the corporation that he works for, Spotify.
Well, also, his stuff is now playing on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in part of his
new deal.
Next round of $250 million deal or whatever it is, $200 million. I'm with him. Let's hold these corporations responsible for the garbage that they're pumping out.
Mm-hmm. Because he's saying like, oh, you don't have a check on what, you have to say there. But it was interesting because after he did spread that myth about kitty litter being in schools and kids identifying as cats, which we found out, he said he had like a secondhand story about it from a friend, as you said, friend's wife, but that was just a right-wing myth that was perpetrated on the internet. So you got to wonder what his motives are. But after that, they started doing a little bit more fact-checking there from Jamie. I know he's done that before, but specifically on the issue of trans rights, you noticed that like they fact-checked Matt Walsh, who had said there were over 1 million kids that were on hormone replacement therapy in this country. That happened after he spread that disinformation. So like, it's interesting here that he's not mentioning Spotify as a major corporation because I think they have like very threadbare fact checking on him that he might even be resentful of. That's just my theory.
the time where you have the most extreme polar social issues, and then you also have the most freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And even though like they're trying to crack down on it with a lot of these,
Whoops.
a lot of
I didn't
don't
mean
know
the
how
most
much you paid
freedom of
attention to the
speech.
Twitter files. Did you pay attention to any of that shit?
A little bit.
Fucking government was literally trying to censor true information that was on Twitter, and they were successful.
Yeah.
They infiltrated the intelligence agencies infiltrated various different social media platforms, and if it wasn't for Elon, we wouldn't know.
Okay, go back a little bit here. Just go back to get to both his, like, what's fascinating is he says, we have more freedom of speech now than we ever have. And then he realizes, oh, wait a second. This is not that's not my meta narrative. My meta narrative is that we don't have freedom of speech. That's the whole point. And then he goes on to even lie about what was in the Twitter file. You didn't have CIA infiltrate Twitter. No, they wrote to Twitter in the same way that corporations do. Hey, we want you to take this down. It's inaccurate. This COVID denialism is inaccurate. You will also have publicists going like, we want you to take down these posts about whoever it is, the guy from, Shark Tank, because he's wrong or whatever. I mean, that's infiltrate anything. They sent letters. Go ahead.
And even though like they're trying to crack down on it with I don't know how much you paid attention to the Twitter files. Did you pay attention to any of that shit?
A little bit.
Fucking government was literally trying to censor true information that was on Twitter, and they were successful.
Yeah.
They infiltrated the intelligence agencies infiltrated various different social media platforms, and if it wasn't for Elon, we wouldn't know. We would not know if it wasn't for Matt Taibbi and all those people that and Michael Schellenberger and Barry Weiss and all those people who went through the Twitter files and were like, look at this. This is crazy. This is crazy. You wouldn't know that the actual government itself is trying to sculpt the way people are allowed to disseminate information and see the world.
Yeah, because they've always been able to.
Amazing.
Pretty specific stuff.
I mean, I can't help but think of the Heidegger parody of the Joe Rogan Experience when they go, "Yeah, that's crazy, man." No specifics, but it's so crazy.
Totally crazy. Join in the Berg. I'm on board with most of what y'all talk about on foreign policy, immigration, the economy, and climate change. But I draw the line at cargo short slander. How dare you?
A lot of pockets.
Just saying, it's metrosexual label doesn't really.
Chris Burdick, I just got a reminder in my email about the end of the Affordable Connectivity Program. Thankfully, I've already taken the step of downgrading my internet service to avoid sticker shock. Millions of people won't have and will be hit by a costly surprise later this month. This is not going to help Biden's numbers. I agree with you. The only thing that we can maybe report on that is that supposedly, in the event there is a motion to vacate, which it sounds like Marjorie Taylor Greene is still going forward with at this point, and it's going to be brought up next week, the Democrats have agreed to save Mike Johnson's ass, but I think they're going to put in as an amendment to that vote to essentially keep Mike Johnson as Speaker is an extension of the Affordable Connectivity Program. We'll see. Hopefully that will happen. But that's certainly, I think, like the best use of that vote. And it'll be interesting. Like you're basically watching Force the Vote and it being a mechanism, in this instance, for the Democrats to do good things. As opposed to, let's say, you were to do it in another way where it could be a mechanism for Republicans to do bad things. Just saying.
Yep.
We'll see. You know what? We got a little time. I'm going to
Open up the
fire up the phone lines.
Yeah, there we go.
The number is 646-257-3920, 646-257-3920. This is amazing. Let's play this clip of in Dartmouth. I mean, what's happening with these protests are pretty nuts. Here you see, and do we have her on also on the her tweeting out after the fact? Look for that. Here is you'll see an image of a Dartmouth history professor, Annalise Orlek. She's also did some Jewish studies. She's a history professor. One of the things she specializes in is Jewish immigration at Dartmouth. And watch, she's an older woman, probably up around my age or more, and the cops don't care. There she is. She's pointing at the cops, and they grab her. They drag her off, and now they drop her to the ground to cuff her. They are dragging that woman.
She's a threat to our safety.
She was the past. She wasn't just someone who'd specialized in Jewish studies. She was the past chair of the Jewish Studies department.
There you go. Clearly engaging in anti-Semitism by participating in such that poll. Do we have that tweet?
I just sent it. This is her statement that she gave on Twitter in response to this video. Annalise Orlek, those cops were brutal to me. I promise I did absolutely nothing wrong. I was standing with a line of women faculty in their 60s to 80s trying to protect our students. I have now been banned from the campus where I have taught for 34 years.
And to clarify that, Dartmouth has pointed out that, according to college spokesman Jana Barnello in an email statement to Dartmouth, Orlek's prohibition was a condition imposed by the bail commissioner, while the college had no intention of seeking Professor Orlek's exclusion from campus. And the college will promptly request that any errors be corrected. So, I mean, that's obviously good, but, I mean, horrible. And Annalise Orlek, looked at her books. It's like she's somebody who should be a guest on this show, frankly. And just standing up and being, ripped down by cops like that is horrible.
And a complete media blackout on this incident. The only write-up I was able to see was on the Jewish Telegraphic Agency, but none of the major outlets are actually reporting this because it is a threat right now. What these images, and you see it, of professors linking arms around their students and some of them getting brutalized. We saw that infamous footage from Emory. Is that it's those doing the educating and those being educated who are standing up to this. It's the administration representing the wealthy benefactors that contribute to the school and all of these other interests that are facilitating the crackdown. So it lays bare, I think, some of the major systemic problems that our education system has, and also just shows what these protesters and what people standing to end the genocide are up against.
It's also, I would note, the way that people argue against these protests are like dumb, spoiled college students. They don't know anything. And then when they see the professors who presumably do know something, right? They don't talk about the professors going there, or they talk about they're all just sort of leftists. I mean, there is no version of these protests which would be acceptable. People should understand that. And any arguments around these protests are always a distraction from what that is that they're protesting. Now, that's from the perspective of those people who want to avoid that question. But invariably, what protests like these do, even though for a moment the conversation gets sort of like second order, right? Now we're all talking about the protests. We're not talking about the underlying thing that's being protested. But once that dies down, what you're left is with a greater consciousness of what's going on there, because people are like, move on to the underlying things. And that takes a while. People will catch up with that. So,
Yeah, let the white moderates air themselves out like they did during civil rights and be like, "Oh, this counter protest is actually hurting their cause." Thanks for asking.
right, exactly.
Yep.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.